Welcome to this special episode of Pursue One Neuropathology. And we have Dr. Shambhit Mohanty with us for this special program. And today he'll be talking about multiple facets of eosinophilic renal neoplasm. And we also have Dr. Shodipto Roy to moderate the things. But before we start the session, let me request everybody, please mute your mic, please keep your cameras off, and please do not share your screen. And that's a very special request to everybody so that we can have an uninterrupted program. So with this, we would like Dr. Mohanty to take over. Sir, please take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nadim. And now I have to do the full screen thing, right? You
Yeah.
got your attention.
Yeah, your screen is on the way. I can see it coming. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is
please
it
make
on?
it.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see let's make the first screen full screen, please.
Okay.
Yeah, fine. Please take over. Thank you so much.
Okay. So good evening, everyone, and thank you, Nadim Da and Sudipta Da. I call them Dada because they are my brothers from PGI Chandigarh, and Dr. Roy is my immediate boss at Amri. So he guides me a lot over the last 2 3 years in India. So we have a few trainees. Why I put the pictures of one famous Bollywood actress and famous Hollywood actress. They have some similarities, and that similarities with the eosinophilic mysterious renal neoplasms. The left one is Merlin Monroe from Hollywood, and the Bollywood replica is Madhubala, well talented, extremely gorgeous actresses with dance, and they kind of different pictures in different versatility in their role throughout the movies, like our eosinophilic renal neoplasm. So I thought I should put something. They both love pink color, and they are the famous actresses of East and West. So as you know, renal tumors. A little bit about the histogenesis. We know we have the proximal tubules, the distal tubules collecting the Lupercalia and all this thing. So typically, the clear cell renal cell carcinoma and the papillary, they arise from the proximal tubules. They're tumors of the proximal tubule. They are CK7 positive tumors. Whereas the tumors which are really bad, high grade, collecting duct tumors, they're in the distal tubule, and the renal medullary carcinoma, they're also tumors of the distal tubule. Whereas we have these pink tumors, chromophobe renal cell carcinoma, and oncocytomas, they have tumors of the intercalated cells which are part of the Lupercalia, the ascending Lupercalia, and at the junction of the medulla and the cortex. And if you typically see, they have some similarities in the Y chromosome loss, and they're probably the same tumor of two different spectrums. Renal tumors, incidence-wise, the commonest being the renal cell, clear cell conventional type of renal cell carcinoma, or the hypernephroma, or the Graves' tumor, then the papillaries, chromophobe, collecting duct, and unclassified. So if you go by the prognosis and the biologic behavior, oncocytoma and adenomas, the benign spectrum of the disease, and collecting duct carcinoma are the worst actor, even the renal medullary. Chromophobe is better. Chromophobe and type 1 papillary, they have a relatively indolent behavior. Type 2 clear cell papillary, the bad tumors. And the incidence of renal tumor is increasing with imaging. Even we can get small tumors with nephron sparing nephrectomies and partial nephrectomies. This is the 5 year survival data. Among the other urologic malignancy, if you see, the survival data is not that great over the last 20-25 years, but things are improving now with the advent of molecular diagnostics, targeted therapies, and so on. So this is a list of new FDA-approved targeted therapies for various renal cell tumors, and the ones which are in blue, they are approved and up in use. Most importantly, the mTOR inhibitors and vascular endothelial growth factor inhibitors. So why we are worried about this cytoplasmic eosinophilitis? Pink is good. Pink tumors are always good tumors. No, it's not entirely true. It is the most common, difficult to classify feature in a renal cell neoplasm. Why I'm saying using the word neoplasm? Because some are benign, some are non-neoplastic, some are malignant. So cytoplasmic eosinophilia is the most common difficult to classify feature in a renal neoplasm. Usually, anatomic pathologic attributes like growth and microscopy, molecular diagnostics, and IHC help us to discriminate, but not entirely true. There are well-established features to differentiate a benign entity oncocytoma from chromophobe renal cell carcinoma, but there are hybrid entities also coming, making it more cumbersome, challenging for the pathologist to give an answer to the urologist. Sometimes, in other tumors, eosinophilia may be diffuse, may be focal with other features, and the nuclear feature may be subtle to say it may be chromophobe, it may be clear cell, it may be papillary, or something else. There's a big host of tumors among the pink tumors. I'll just stay here for a minute. It's Kenneth's article I just picked from archives. Clear cell tumor can have focal or diffuse eosinophilic granularity of the cytoplasm. Papillary type 2 is a eosinophilic tumor. We have thyroid-like follicular neoplasm with or without papillary-like nuclear features in the kidney. The host of translocation-associated tumors, tumors involving deficiencies of urea cycle and tricarboxylic acid cycle, chromophobe, oncocytoma, hybrid oncocytic tumor, low-grade oncocytic tumor, neither chromophobe nor oncocytomas, collecting duct carcinoma, even a Xanthogranulomatosis pyelonephritis looks like a cancer with a lot of eosinophilic cells. Then epithelial AML, uh, tuberous sclerosis, sporadic or familial, and sarcomas. So this is the list I just discussed. We'll go one by one. These are the so-called pink tumors of the kidney. So why we need to classify? Before we have an entity called renal cell carcinoma unspecified even now, but with the new targeted molecules or molecular events which are going on inside the carcinoma cells and immunostains, the number of unclassifiable RCCs are decreasing. If you kind of check through the database of National Cancer Institute from 1998 to 2014, it has decreased to about 28%. Still, it is a major issue because some tumors we are not able to classify. So the urologist is in problem whether to do any targeted therapy for that or not is a major issue. So pink cytoplasm is a major finding in a series of RCCs unclassifiable. So if you go by the unclassifiable RCCs, about 85% of them, the problem is because of pinkness. If it is a clear-cut clear cell tumor, it's fine. Clear cell papillary, it is fine. It is pink with ugly nucleus, tubular. Am I audible? Did something happen to my computer? Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay, great. Okay. So there's something happened to my computer. So among these unclassifiable tumors, pinkness of the cytoplasm, whether diffuse or focal, creates a problem to classify it into a further subcategory. If it is a clear cell, it is not a problem. If it is a clear cell, blue looking papillary, it is not a problem. Clear cell papillary is not a problem. If it is pink with lot of ugliness located in the medulla with necrosis, neutrophils, tubulopapillary architecture is not an issue. So if it is pink with hybrid morphology, it creates a problem. And majority of these tumors, they have a nuclear grade of ISUB 3 or 4. And among them, there are about 70%, they do not fall into either an oncocytoma, which is perfectly benign, or a chromophobe renal cell carcinoma. 14% are clear cell with granular features, 13% with high-grade features which are not so difficult. So overestimation or overrepresentation of the eosinophilic tumor among those which are problematic creates problem to the uropathologist, general surgical pathologist to understand the biology and put that into a classification scheme. So there are the few entities which I'm going to discuss. Papillary renal cell carcinoma type 2, a thyroid-like follicular carcinoma, translocation-associated renal cell carcinoma, tumors involving the urea cycle and TCA cycle enzymes, chromophobe, the common one, chromophobe and oncocytoma, then HOT, which is hybrid oncocytic tumor, then CK7 positive, diffusely, and CD117 negative, low grade oncocytic neoplasm of the kidney, and others are kind of very classical, so I'm not going to discuss, but they're on the list. And what I'm going to discuss, how they look like grossly. I would not emphasize much on IHC in the beginning. We'll talk about it, but mostly we are all anatomic pathologists, so we should know the gross and the microscopy and the presentation, how do they present, the clinical correlates, what the differentials, and how to what those cases are. Chromophobe. It was initially described in 1985 by Tierney et al. From Harvard, and they described two different types with loss of multiple chromosomes. There is no chromosomal gain usually in chromophobe. It is a lost tumor. So there is a loss of 1, Y, 2, 10, and 30. There is a better prognostic group, and there is some association with oncocytoma in the beginning, it was thought. So if you see, this is a brown tumor. It's more like mahogany brown than, or orangish brown than, or orange brown than tan brown, homogeneous with some areas of hemorrhage and cystic change. Well circumscribed. Unlike the clear cell RCC, which is more yellow, it has big, large cystic spaces filled with blood and some deep areas representing necrosis. Here is more like a mahogany brown. And if you see these two tumors, this is the clear cell on the left, and this is the chromophobe on the right, and both they have invaded the perinephric pad and they about the gyrato's fascia. Here it is also into the perinephric pad. So what are the key diagnostic features? You have a solid pattern of arrangement or broad juxtaposed alveoli with little fibrous tissue, tubular. They may have a broad fibrous septa, thick-walled hyalinized vessel parallel to each other. The cell types can be A, B, or C. What is very classical of this tumor, they have cytoplasmic clearing or perinuclear clearing, and the nuclear envelope is never round. In chromophobe, the classical chromophobe renal cell carcinoma, the nuclear envelope is not round, it is wrinkled. It is not as wrinkled as a papillary thyroid carcinoma, but you see nuclear membrane irregularity. Binucleation can be present, and cytoplasmic membrane of the cell membrane is prominent, looking like a vegetable cell. So there are three types of cell if you see. The classical ones are the type 2 cells. Type 2 cells, they have perinuclear halo, and if you see, they have a dark nucleus, relatively dark nucleus, and the cytoplasmic membrane of the cell membrane is prominent. So there is a zone of eosinophilia next to the perinuclear halo, between the perinuclear halo to the membrane, and there's a zone of clearance. It can be very clear with a pyknotic nucleus, and the clear area will have basophilic traits going in between to the cytoplasmic membrane, the reticulated cytoplasm, or it can be very, very eosinophilic with a small prominent nucleolus and no halo. So there are three types of cells. This creates problem with oncocytoma. This creates problem with clear cell renal cell carcinoma. So the typical ones, easy to diagnose is this one, and the reticulated maybe, but this is the easiest. Difficult to diagnose is eosinophilic or you have a reticulated one. So this one, it has the reticulated morphology and thin septae dividing it some eosinophilic cells. So it has type 3 cells and type 1 cells. Again, the same thing. It has some type 2 cells also, and these are the typical type 1 cells with small nucleolus. This looks like a typical one with a perinuclear clearing, cytoplasmic irregularity, and pinkness following that. Same thing. You can see, you are lucky, you see some mucin and this prominent nucleoli. Look at the nucleoli. Nucleoli in chromophobe renal cell carcinoma is usually IUCP grade 2 and 3, but that does not prognosticate the tumor. I just want to make it very clear, we do not use the WHO and IUCP grading system typically in chromophobe renal cell carcinoma because the nuclear grade is usually high, and that does not translate into the biologic behavior of the tumor and the prognosis of the tumor. This is the beautiful thing with thin fibrovascular septa. You do not see this edematous area in chromophobe renal cell carcinoma. You may see some groove, nuclear groove, and nucleolus may not be prominent rarely, and giving a little bit of resemblance to oncocytoma. Oncocytoma. I'll come to the common features again. It's the most frequent benign tumor. It has a benign behavior with a loss of Y and 1. It has a close relationship with chromophobe renal cell carcinoma. Again, same brown, little less brown maybe. The cell in chromophobe renal cell carcinoma are compact. There's a little bit of stroma in chromophobe renal cell carcinoma, where the stroma is a lot edematous, myxohyaline, myxoid in oncocytoma. So you see a little less brownness in chromophobe renal cell carcinoma. You do see scar-like areas in in oncocytoma. This I'm talking about oncocytoma. Again, this is the brown tumor here in the upper pole. This is another one, little darker maybe. This is to compare. This is not an oncocytoma. This is a clear cell renal cell carcinoma with a lot of hemorrhage, and this focus is showing sarcomatoid dedifferentiation. We do not use the word sarcomatoid RCC. We say RCC with sarcomatoid dedifferentiation. This is a huge oncocytoma. So what I just spoke about, just compare the tumor we saw before and now. These are compact. This is a compact tumor, but these compact islands, they are kind of blending into the loose area. The loose area is composed of the white areas, slate gray areas, and the pink areas. This is the typical myxohyaline, edematous, loose stroma of oncocytoma. And the cells, they may be present in strands, intrabecularly, in clusters, and then there are branching islands, and these are the typical ones which are called archipelagus pattern, or they look like the archipelagus island with this edematous myxoid stroma, and you have the tubules also. They can go tubular, tubuloreticular, tubulopapillary architecture as well. This is those islands. If you see here, the cells have a lot of eosinophilic cytoplasm, central nucleus. Again, you can have some clearing. This kind of cells creates problem when you start looking at cytoplasmic clearing. But if you look at the cells, here the nuclei, they appear like as if they're in syncytia. The cell borders are not very well defined. And look at this reticulated myxohyaline edematous stroma and this iron-like structures with different layers. They can have thyroid-like areas, and this is to see the cell morphology. The nuclear membrane is perfectly round. There is no wrinkling, resinoid appearance of the nucleus. You see small chromocenters within the nucleus, no prominent nucleoli. You may see one or two prominent nucleoli, but not like chromophobe renal cell carcinoma. They have a clearing close to the cytoplasmic membrane, but not next to the nuclear membrane. There is no perinuclear halo, rather the halo is surrounding the external compartment of the cytoplasm. Again, the same thing. This is granular eosinophilic, starting from the nuclear membrane to the cytoplasmic membrane, and there's the rim of clearing between the cells or just after the eosinophilic area. This is to differentiate. On the left, we have a chromophobe renal cell carcinoma. On the right, we have an oncocytoma. It is the perinuclear clearing. Here it is the outside of the cell with clearing, if at all is present. You can see focal atypical features like hemorrhage, invasion into the perinephric fat or sinus fat, invading the vessels, maybe a very large size with necrosis. This kind of atypia you can see in oncocytoma. Don't get worried about it. This is something like endocrine atypia. You see already, but symplastic atypia, as the nucleus is kind of breaking apart into fragments, nuclear membrane irregularities, multinucleation, chromocenter clumping. All these things can be seen in oncocytoma, but there's no increase in mitotic activity. Even in chromophores, it is hardly difficult to see mitotic activity. This is showing hemorrhage. This is into the perinephric patch, invading into the perinephric patch. So how we are going to do what now? Typically what happens? Oncocytoma is a tube, oncocytoma and renal cell carcinoma. They are c-KIT positive tumor. That means on IHC, they are positive for CD117. But there is no gain in function mutation of c-KIT. That is very interesting. There is no c-KIT mutation like in gastrointestinal stromal tumor we have in neither in oncocytoma nor in chromophobia cell carcinoma. So c-KIT positivity differentiates other pink tumors from renal oncocytoma, onco and chromo. So onco and chromo are differentiated from other tumors by CD117 positivity. While oncocytoma is dead negative or very, very focally positive for CK7, chromophobe renal cell carcinoma is diffusely membranous positive for CK7. So CK7 positive, CD117 positive is chromo, whereas onco is a CK7 negative and CD117 positive tumor. Other markers are of academic interest, but actually they do not help. So I'm not going over those. Then health colloidal iron, if your techs are good, your technologists are very good and they're doing a good staining, they may be positive at the luminal surface, whereas they're positive in the perinuclear halo and surrounding the nucleus in chromophobia cell carcinoma. Another thing, how to differentiate a pink tumor is not a renal cell carcinoma, conventional type clear cell with focal to diffuse granular cytoplasm. A renal cell carcinoma, which is clear cell arising from the proximal convoluted tubule, are positive for RCC membrane antigen, CD10, and A-cadherin, which are usually negative in oncocytoma. In chromo helps a lot if it is done properly. They are present in the form of microvesicles, they are diffuse and stronger, and they have reticular pattern of positivity from the nucleus to the cytoplasm. CK7 is diffuse and strong, and CD117 membranous. GATA3, we did a project a few years ago, but it didn't help because GATA3 is going to be positive in onco and chromo, so it doesn't help in differentiating. Similarly, DOG1 is also positive in both the tumors, it doesn't help much. And another thing, Vimentin is negative in this tumor. Vimentin is positive in clear cell renal cell carcinoma with granular cytoplasm. It is negative in oncocytoma. I have a table towards the end. So, if you have to differentiate a chromo from onco, CK7 CD117 helps. If you want to differentiate chromo from onco from papillary, then add Amacar or Restimage to that panel. And if for clear cell, you add a Vimentin and CD10 to the panel. Then a few words about Barrett-Dubé syndrome. It is a hybrid tumor, or it can be a pure oncocytoma or multiple oncocytoma or oncocytosis. This is a familial tumor with autosomal dominant type of inheritance, and the germline mutation is present in the BHTG and chromosome 17p, which codes for the protein polyphenol. Incidence is rare. A diagnosis is usually at the age of 50 years. The patient typically present with a triad of cutaneous lesions, fibrofolliculoma, acrocotons or trichodiscomas, pulmonary cyst, and renal tumor. The combination can be manifold. So this is the case of hybrid oncocytic tumor. What they show features, some features of chromo, some features of onco. And here if you see some cells, they have a good health staining and some cells are dead negative. And if you look at here, the CK7 is more than expected from a chromophobe renal cell carcinoma. So if I go by the staining positivity, forget about Vimentin and all. CD10 is negative in all this tumor because these are not the tumor of the proximal convoluted tubule. They are by excluding a clear cell renal cell carcinoma. Hence, colloidal iron has a apical or a luminal pattern of positivity if at all it is seen in renal oncocytoma. It is cytoplasmic diffuse in chromophore. CK7 strong positive in chromophore. CD117 in both. Other stains nobody does. So forget about it. So the CD117 positive tumor in all three, and CK7 negative towards oncocytoma, positive towards chromophobe. Hybrid will have hybrid morphology. First of all, you need to see hybrid morphology feature. It doesn't look quite like an oncocytoma. It has areas of oncocytoma imperceptibly blending with areas of chromophobenal cell carcinoma. You have something which looks very onco, but no archipelaginous pattern, tubular pattern, or edematous stroma. Then you think about what's happening. Or you have renal oncocytoma like picture with a little more CK7 positive in addition to CD117 positivity, then you are in trouble. Should I call it oncocytoma or chromophobe or what is it? Because one is a benign tumor and one is a malignant tumor, and hybrid oncocytic tumors, they are potentially low-grade malignant tumors, so they behave in between, they are not perfectly benign. So this is a case of hybrid oncocytic. I just picked this up from Dr. True from Washington University. He published a beautiful paper on a lot of cases, about 30 some cases of hybrid oncocytic tumor, and they did a genomic profile. What you see here, you have areas which are very solid, like an oncocytoma, areas of chromophobe with perinuclear clearing. You have areas which looks very neuroendocrine. It's difficult to say what is the resisting pattern, but neither the features of oncocytoma nor the features of um, chromophobe is there. It can have a tubular-papillary architecture with papillary renal cell, type 2 renal cell carcinoma like picture with polygonal cell and a lot of eosinophilic cytoplasm. So what are you doing with this tumor? So what they did, they looked into the next-gen sequencing platform for this tumor, and they saw various features. So I'll go by those features in the next slide. So if you see a prominent architecture and look at what is the quantity and the quality of the stroma, if it is a stroma-rich lesion, you are probably dealing with an oncocytic tumor. If a stroma-rich lesion, which is CK7 negative, CD117 positive, call it an oncocytoma. If it is stroma-poor lesion, more solid area, CK7 is positive, and you see nuclear membrane irregularity, perinuclear halo. These are unfavorable immunomorphologic features, and you need to rule that out as a hybrid oncocytic. Okay. So then accordingly you do. So the red points are the alarming points or malignant points, and green points are benign points. So if you have a nested architecture with edema, fibrosis, rare CK7, come to a point of RO, which is renal oncocytoma. If there is cytoplasmic clearing, wrinkling of the cytoplasmic membrane, perinuclear halo, prominent cytoplasmic membrane, you are into a chromophobe renal cell carcinoma category. Anything in between needs genomic profiling, whether it supports a diagnosis of RO, which has limited genomic abnormalities or abnormalities, deletion 1 or loss of 1 or loss of Y, they're not deletions, they're complete loss, or there is multiple losses like the chromophobe renal cell carcinoma. So what they conclude in that paper, a chromophobe renal cell carcinoma were either hypoploid or with numerous monosomies or losses, or hypotetraploid with multiple related losses, whereas RO is either normal or loss of X or Y and 1, and RO variant which have typical losses involving all these chromosomes. So in that is the largest series published this month only in August 2020 in human pathology. So please look at that picture if you have a problematic case. At least you can order, because if you have a tumor which doesn't look, you have these features. You may not have the NGS facility, but if you have a tumor which is showing, which is a CK positive tumor, CD117 positive tumor, but the features are kind of in between. At least you can ask the urologist to send it to a higher center for NGS, or if NGS facility is not there, they need to follow up the patient. After nephrectomy, the patient should be followed up properly, because HOCT and CHRCC are malignant tumor, whereas RO is a benign tumor. And once you say RO, the patient is out of the hook. The patient is not going to be followed up. So in that case, you probably will sign out as a renal oncocytic neoplasm, see comment, and the features are blah, 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 and blah. Therefore, a HOCT or a CHRCC are considered in the differential diagnostic consideration, and a close follow-up of the patient with imaging and clinical profile is extremely required, and if possible, a next-gen sequencing study to look for the deletion and hypoploidy and hyperdiploidy should be looked for. I can take a few questions now. If anybody has any questions or comments.
Anybody has any questions or comments? I don't think so. There is. You can just continue.
Okay, sure. The next one is the clear cell renal cell carcinoma. Look at it, it can be completely yellow, red with yellow, red, hemorrhagic, cystic, and a combination of everything, a variegation heterogeneity. So this is clear. So classically it is clear. Solid pattern of growth can be acinar, tubular, cystic, pseudopapillary, hemorrhagic, hyalinized. It can have clear cell, granular, epithelioid, rhabdoid, or spindle cell. So this is a lot of lymphocytes and plasma cells, and you have this eosinophilic cell next to the clear cell in a clear cell RCC. These are the rhabdoid cells. These are they have a rhabdoid morphology, perinuclear eosinophilia, maybe forming a blob-like structure. There's some apoptotic bodies. There are some eosinophilic globules in the secretion and from this is the clear cell area, and this is the this is the clear cell area, and this is the eosinophilic area. So differentials are manifold again. Even you also think about an adrenocortical tumor, even in the upper pole. Papillary. So you know how to differentiate. These are typically CD10. They are focal. The location of the tumor helps if it is mostly like polar tumor, and you see the cut surface is cystic, hemorrhagic with different variegated areas. You have preponderance of clear cell areas. Then you see a heterogeneity in the cell morphology. And if you have the facility of immunostain, you can do it with that CD10 positive, by mentioning positive tumors, and they're rarely CD117. They're actually CD117 and CK7 negative, so that helps. Then papillary renal cell carcinoma. It has a very granular, friable surface like here, because the papillaries are kind of falling apart and they form cavitation or loss of substance. And so they can have tubular architecture, tubulo-papillary, solid or papillary. Cells can be classical, which is a type 1 papillary. It is a basophilic papillary renal cell carcinoma. Eosinophilic are the big ones, bad ones. That is the type 2. A few clear cells can be present mixed or with anything can get into sarcomatoid differentiation. Chromophobe very rarely get into sarcomatoid differentiation. The second most type of RCC they so gain. Chromophobe is loss, papillary is gain, and there is the amplification of MET pro-oncogene, which is hepatocyte growth factor receptor and hepatocyte growth factor. They are more frequent to regional metastases and bad prognosis. This is type 1, which is a good tumor with some of our bodies. Sorry. And if you see the nuclear cytoplasmic ratio is increased, you have a big nucleus, little cytoplasm. It is a blue-looking tumor. The papilla are present, but they're kind of squished papilla with a thin fibrovascular core, and the nucleus looks big, and they usually have a low nuclear grade, isonuclear grade. Anything looks very blue is a papillary type 1. This is, whereas here, the nucleus is inconspicuous. There is nucleomegaly, but there is cytomegaly as well. You have a lot of cytoplasmic volume. The cytoplasmic compartment is full with eosinophilic cytoplasm, and you see some hemorrhage and broad papillae. And if you go to high power, you see a well-developed core, and they usually have prominent nuclei, either 2 or 3 isop-WHO grade nucleus and some edema. And the cells are polygonal to polyhedral with eosinophilic cytoplasm. Here, their clear cells can be present. Normally, the nuclear membrane is smooth. A wrinkling Reginault architecture can be present. The nucleolus in papillary can be central to eccentric, whereas in oncocytoma, they are usually a little eccentric from the center. Papillary type 1 has a bad prognosis, and type 1 is much better than type 2 from the Kaplan-Meier. If you see, this is a good one, and this is a bad one. For me, histiocytes, you always see classical textbook teaching from first year of residency. You see in papillary tumors. There's a pink type 2 papillary as you see with a lot of Homi cells. This is papillary type 2 with basophilic secretion with a much of cytoplasmic clearing. This is this is difficult to classify. It is solid patterns, no papilla is present, some nuclear clearing is present, but if you see, you have two types of cells. Cells are round, oval to spindle, which are dark chromatin cells, and the cells which have a pale chromatin, small nucleolus, and it looks very white out, and some cells with little cytoplasm, some cells with lot of cytoplasm. So it is a hybrid feature of type 1 and type 2. This is also safe. You have some type 1 areas and you have some type 2 areas. What to do? So a papillary can be a very heterogeneous tumor. If the clear cell RCC can have pseudopapillary, papillary RCC can have clear cell. Some papillary can have features of both 1 and 2. Papillary type 2 with low nuclear grade versus oncocytic papillary are the same or different. So there are a lot of issues. This is a good papillary. This is again papillae. It looks like an oncocytoma. There are a lot of oncocytic, very eosinophilic granular cytoplasm. The type 2 papillary may not have granular eosinophilic cytoplasm. This oncocytic papillary has a granular eosinophilic cytoplasm and they behave badly. These are old paper and old concepts, so I'm not going to go over this slide. So if I go by oncocytic PRCC type 1, type 2, and clear cell. So what do you see? Clear cell, as I said, CD117 negative, you and I mentioned positive, CD10 positive, so you can rule out the chromophobe. Chromophobe is out. So now you're between other tumors. CK7 can be positive in everything except type 2 papillary is typically CK7 negative, and there can be CK20 wishy-washy positive. Then AMACA is positive in all the papillary spectrum and negative in PRCC. So if you have to choose stain, I would say use CK7, CD10, and AMACA. These stains are going to help you. A type 1, the real problem arises, you never need stain in a type 1 papillary. So the blue tumor, good papillae, you do not need stain. Maybe you have if sometimes, very rarely, extremely rarely, a problem with metanoptic adenoma, but not usually. But type 2 or oncocytic will have problem. Then AMACAR helps differentiating oncocytic papillary and type 2 papillary from clear cell. Again, clear cell is CD10 negative is the wrong image. I'm sorry for that. Clear cells are 10 and 7. And 7 positivity in clear cell is very low as compared to papillary. So you need your AMACAR 10 and 7 to differentiate these 10, 20, nobody does. Then coming to enzyme deficient renal cell carcinoma, which is succinate dehydrogenase deficient renal cell carcinoma because of germline mutation in the SDH gene. SDH is SDH A, B, C, and D, and most of the tumors are SDH B subunit mutation tumors. It is a tumor, this SDH complex is present in the mitochondria. It is responsible for tricarboxylic acid cycle. They are present in the inner mitochondrial membrane. So, and the 4 complexes, they are present like this. So what it does, it converts succinate to fumarate, and fumarate then goes through the cytochrome oxidase pathway, reducing the ubiquinone to ubiquinol and forms ATP. So if there is HDF deficient, so normally what in glycolysis produces 2 ATP, whereas left cycle produces another 36, so you have 38 ATP. If the SDH is deficient, the cell is going to produce only 2 ATP. So there is hypoxic damage to the cell and liberation of nitrous oxide with adduct formation and subsequently oncogenesis. That is the Warburg effect of carcinogenesis. So if you see here, SDH deficient tumors, the electron transport chain is not going to function, and what you get only 2 ATP with anaerobic milieu inside the cell and oncogenesis, because first of all you have your carbonic anhydrous which will be activated, then you have nitric oxide will be activated, and that forms adduct within the cell and produces carcinogenesis. Similarly, the same stuff happens if you have a fumarate hydroxylase deficiency, which is the next step after succinate, leading to Krebs cycle defect and cancer. So loss of So when you do a staining, every normal cell will have SDHB. Every nucleated cell, not RBCs, every nucleated cell will have SDHB. Any cell with a mitochondria will have SDHB. And if you stain that cell and if you see SDHB staining is not present, a negative staining like INI1, that means there is biallelic inactivation of any of the component of the HGS complex leading to the syndrome. And what all it can produce? It can produce gastrointestinal stromal tumor, pheochromocytoma, paraganglioma, and pituitary adenoma, and a group of RCC. Why we are studying about these RCC? This is about 0.05 to 0.2% of all renal cell carcinomas. Previously, these were described as unclassifiable RCCs in children and young adults. The mean age is 38 years, but that can be a broad range. A slight male preponderance. And how do they present? They present as solitary tumors, but can be bilateral and multifocal. And majority were confined to the kidney are incidentally detected. They are good tumors. They are solid tumors with tan brown to red cut surface, but multicystic change can be present. So if you see, they look the very homogeneous cut surface. They have two things in the cytoplasm, clearing as well as eosinophilia. That is very important. If you see a tumor which in the same cell have two features, clearing and eosinophilia, or you have a cell with eosinophilic cytoplasm and a cell with clear cytoplasm next to each other without forming any tubule, without forming any trabeculae, stroma is very little, there may be a thin encapsulation, then you think about this entity. And you also see oncocytoma like abrupt, bizarre symplastic cells. These tumors are usually not encapsulated, but they can be compressed stroma in the periphery. They can have homogeneous granular cytoplasmic oncocytic like oncocytoma, but they lack the typical stroma of oncocytoma. And frequently they show intracytoplasmic inclusion of vacuole that I say forming a signet ring, and typically the signet ring cells are next to the eosinophilic cell on morphology. And what are these cells? So people claim these are giant mitochondria because the dysmorphic mitochondria, they're not functional, they form as giant mitochondria. And this is the HDHB stain. These are normal tubular cells which are positive, and the abnormal cells are all negative because there is loss. The nuclear grade is usually low. They do not show sarcomatoid differentiation. They do not go anywhere. Very rare chance of metastasis, and they are typically CD117 negative. Only the mark cells are positive. Thereby, you differentiate into this tumor from when everything comes negative or 117 negative, then CK7 negative. Then you are kind of you are not dealing with oncochroma. This is something peculiar. And immunohistochemically, they're negative for CD117 and broad spectrum keratin, and are completely negative for CK7. So they're 117 and CK7 negative tumors. And one thing I've forgotten to tell you, in FH deficient, it is little different. In high grade transformation can be exclusive, resulting in a high grade tumor, which is very, very difficult to recognize and differentiate it from sarcoma or a carcinoma. If at all it undergo high-grade transformation. Normally it does not. Differential, as I said, if you unigrade motility with a flocculent speed through the oncocytoplasm, then you probably do not need any stain. If you have a flocculent blue signet ringy clear cytoplasm, no oncocytic cytoplasm, distinct cell border, absence of wrinkling and perinuclear halo, negative for CD117, negative for keratin, and negative for CK7, you are probably dealing with a syndromic lesion or an SDHB deficient renal cell carcinoma. So these are the differences what I have just said. The nucleus of SDHB deficient renal cell carcinoma can sometimes look like neuroendocrine, but not always. The only thing which helps me is the flocculent eosinophilic, lot of eosinophilic flocculent cytoplasm. It has a blue and a white hue. They show degenerative effect and lot of degenerative ATPI, stroma, poor lesion, and if at all you see if you very focal stroma, it is a more compact lesion. Then eosinophilic solid and cystic renal cell carcinoma. This I say it is a CK20 positive renal cell carcinoma. The name says eosinophilic tumor, which is solid as well as cystic. The incidence is unknown. It's very, very few cases are reported. Then What do you see here? You see cystic areas, and next to the cystic area, abruptly you have a solid area. And in the solid areas, what you see, the cells show high nuclear grade. The nuclear grade is not low. And in the cystic area, they look like the cells are papillary type to renal cell. They have eosinophilic globules and are typically positive for CK20. So approximately 10% is tumors. They occur in the patients with tuberous sclerosis, but a great majority are sporadic and not associated with tuberous sclerosis. So what do you see? They are female tumors of women, the female preponderant tumor, they have a solid and cystic appearance. They are usually stage 1 tumor, solitary tumor. And what you see, solid and cystic areas, solid pink areas, and cystic areas lined by pink cells with hobnailed appearance. So when you see hobnailed cell, you think about a tubulocystic renal cell carcinoma, but tubulocystic would not show you so much of solid area with CK7 positive, CK20 positive. They are voluminous eosinophilic cytoplasm, acidine, nest, and cysts. Grade of nucleus is usually high, and there are 7 negative and 20 positive tumors. Then TFE3 or translocation associated renal cell carcinoma. There is a characteristic translocation involving the TFE3 gene, which is present in the short arm of X chromosome at the 11.2 location, with the multiple other genes leading to overexpression of TFE3 by fish. If you're getting TFE3 by fish, that is the diagnostic sine qua non. If you're looking at by IHC, that may not help because other tumors also can be TFE3 IHC positive in the nucleus. 45% of these occur in children and young adults and increase again adults as well. So what you see, it looks like in this power, it looks like a GYN tract clear cell carcinoma. If I ask you, in a low power, in a kidney, if something is looking like a clear cell carcinoma of the gynecologic tract, you think about translocation associated carcinoma. You have clear areas and pink areas with variably thick septae, mostly thin septae, and the cells are kind of dropping to the some cells are attached to the septal wall and some are dropping into, they're rounding up into the space, and there are some solid areas with clear cells. And if you go to the papilla, usually blunt papilla, they are not like the thin end papilla of type 2 or type 1 renal cell carcinoma. They're more like blunt papilla, and they are lined by both clear and eosinophilic cells. These are some of the calcification and hyalinized fibrovascular pores. Again, same thing. Usually, what happens? The nucleus is not is towards the basal compartment of the cell. They are not getting hobnailed. If you see, only one is trying to get little hobnailed. The rest all are very innocently sitting next to the basal membrane. And the cytoplasm is a lot with a white cap and a pink interior. They are PAX8, CD10, and RCC membrane antigen positive. They are negative for cytokeratin. These are cytokeratin epithelial membrane antigen negative. They are positive for melanocytic marker and TFE3. And TFE3 break apart fish is going to be positive. This is the tumor of children and young adult, papillae lined by clear and eosinophilic cell, under expression of epithelial marker. If your RCC is not behaving, it is negative for epithelial marker with this kind of histology. Think about a TFE3 translocated cancer. Then RCC with CK7 and carbonic anhydrous 9 positive clear cells forming solid nest and papilla. This is another entity, so we don't need now because these are clear cells, these are not eosinophilic cells. Then tuberous sclerosis associated RCC, you see thin papillae with clear cells. The nucleus is away from the basement membrane, and if you do a carbonic anhydrous staining, they make a cap-like positivity. Then TCEP1, mutated renal cell carcinoma. This is again a hotspot mutation of the TCEP leading to loss of VHL and 3P, and with a juxtaposition with PAP1 or TCEP1. They're good tumors. And what you see here, you have branching tubules lined by clear cells or pink cells, pure clear cell areas, focal papillary area, and thick fibromuscular stroma. Then renal cell carcinoma with hereditary leiomyomatosis or HLRCC. They are autosomal dominant. Next to the SDH is the fumarate hydrogen deficiency. These are bad tumors. They undergo high grade transformation. They present synchronously or one after other with uterine leiomyomas or leiomyosarcomas, cutaneous leiomyomas. And what you see in this tumor, you have a CMB-like inclusion. The nucleolus looks like cytomegalic inclusion with prominent perinucleolar halo and eosinophilic cytoplasm with a tubules, a tubular architecture. HLRCC is the bad tumor, and it also can have a papillary or tubular-papillary architecture with pink cell, but the prominent nucleoli, and any kidney tumor with eosinophilic cytoplasm, tubular-papillary architecture, and prominent high nuclear grade, very variegated cut surface, and prominent outline-like inclusion, think about HLRCC. So here, if your FH is deficient, fumarate cannot convert it to malate. So you have the fumarate, they combine with sulfahydryl groups to form 2-succinyl cysteine protein that is oncogenic to the tumor, to the organ. So if you have a young patient with skin leiomyoma or uterine fibroid, prominent nucleoli with halo, diagnosis confirmed by either a positivity of 2-succinyl choline or negativity for FH. So when we typically use IFC to differentiate a tumor at the metastatic site is the renal versus non-renal. When we are our question of a benign versus malignant, we want to subtype, we use it. For rare primary renal neoplasm, you have a core biopsy from a renal tumor to know it is tumor or not and in diagnosis, in metastasis. So papillary typically, as I said, CK7, Amacar, and CD10, clear cell is Vimentin, epithelial marker, RCC antigen positive, PAX2, PAX8 positive, chromo-onco, the signature is CD117, onco being 7 CK7 positive, onco being CK7 negative, and chromo being CK7 positive. Onco is Vimentin positive, but chromo is Vimentin negative. Collecting duct, these are bad tumors, they show the immunophenotype of urothelium, so they are GATA3 positive, they are P63 positive, they are HMWCK positive, and rarely positive for the proximal tubular marker. XP11.2 tumors, they are usually epithelial marker negative and they are positive for TAP3. Clear cell papillary, there again, they have a hybrid positivity for CK7 and PAXis. So what is this tumor? This is I showed this in the first class. Is a thyroid-like follicular carcinoma of the tumor, which is negative for the thyroid marker and positive for the renal tubular marker. This is a case of jantonodomatous pyelonephritis with fat invasion, lot of pink cells. These are all histiocytes, negative epithelial marker, and you have this giant cell. So it looks like malignancy, grossly and microscopically, but this is nothing but an inflammatory process. Then there's one new entity we just described, Son and myself, and then a few people from Montreal. This is the low grade, the second paper. They described the first one and the second one. We have a little difference. This low grade oncocytic tumor, which are CD117 negative and CK7 positive. So, what are these tumors? They are older patients, non syndromic, good prognosis, small size. What you see on microscopy, you see is a non encapsulated solid tumor with a compact nested pattern with almost no stroma. And if at all stroma is present, that is very much away from the compact area, not kind of blending with each other. And cytologically, you have features of oncocytoma with very little nuclear membrane irregularity. And if you stain these tumors, they are 117 negative. They look mostly like oncocytoma, but they are 117 negative. So what is it? And the CK7 strongly positive. So there's a new entity which is called CD117 negative, CK7 positive, LOT, a low-grade oncocytic tumor of the kidney. This is the gross. And what you see, it is oncocytoma like compact area, some tubules, some loose area and the solid area next to each other, and this again loose area and lymphocytic infiltrate. And health iron is sort of negative with a little wishy-washy kind of thing. I will take it as a positive negative state. So these tumors are again 117 and 7. Negative 7 positive, as chromophobe is positive for both, and onco is positive for 117. And others are not usually the differential. The differential is between, it has hybrid features between onco and chromo, but the definition marker, HOCT, hybrid oncocytic tumor, is by definition CD117 positive tumor, whereas LOT by definition is a CD117 negative tumor. So in our study, in the 13 cases, what we saw amplification of mTOR pathway gene, so and loss of tuberous sclerosis gene 1 and 2. So maybe everolimus and temsirolimus may be targeted therapy for this group of tumors. We saw out of 13 cases, 8 tumors we saw that kind of mutation. Then in high-grade tumors also we can have papillary and eosinophilic architecture like urothelial carcinoma of the renal pelvis, collecting duct carcinoma, renal medullary carcinoma, and any super high-grade tumor RCC. Just remember, any high-grade renal cell carcinoma will show some degree of eosinophilia. So this I'm not going to, I mean, this is something you all know how to differentiate the tumors with clear cell morphology, few markers. If it's clear cell, then your CK7 is basically going to nail it down. You are not going to do all the stains depending on the architecture. If you solid clear, do not waste your money on Amazon, just do a CK7, CD117 and CD10. It is going to give an answer. If the epithelial markers are negative, then think about a translocation associated cancer. If papillary, tubulopapillary, go for CK7, CD10, and AMACA, that will give you answer. If they're all negative, looking very ugly with necrosis, neutrophil, dysplasia, tubular architecture centered in the medulla, think about a collecting duct. Granular eosinophilic tumor, first one is CD117. Start with CD117 negative, oncochroma is out. CD117 positive, think about clear cell, do a Vimentin and a either a PAX2 or a PAX8 or a CD10, you will have the answer. And of course, if you have epithelial angiomyolipoma, it is going to be HMB45 positive. If it is a MITF or TFP3 family positive tumor, they are going to be TFPB positivity. Then spindle cell morphology, again, you have to differentiate it's the true sarcoma of the kidney or it is a spindle cell of a sarcomatous dedifferentiation RCC. So you go by the epithelial markers, either a pancreatin, low molecular creatinine, and then you nail it down. And renal marker like 10 or PAX2 or PAX8. Then poorly differentiated ones, which are difficult ones, they are very difficult to kind of classify accordingly. They are how to differentiate. I mean, I find GATA3 is not much useful when it is differentiating collecting duct from urothelial carcinoma because GATA3 can be positive in both. Collecting duct can be high molecular and P63 positive. So what usually helps here is in collecting duct one, you see usually CK20 is negative. Only tumor in the kidney I can think about CK20 positive is eosinophilic solid system. And urothelial tumors are classically CK20 positive tumors. So the take-home message for these kidney tumors featuring eosinophilic cytoplasm can lead to a pathologist down a difficult pathway to correctly diagnose the entity. Morphologically, many of these masses they have similar features other than cytoplasmic eosinophilia like tubular features, tuberoreticular features, papillary features, solid features, lymphocytoma. So, what to do? Establishing a correct diagnosis is more attainable than in the previous decade. Previous decade, there is not much of a targeted therapy, so we're happy. Okay, fine. The tumor stage is so much, and it is infiltrating to the fat, and the nodes are negative. There is no metastasis. We're good to go. That's fine. No, I mean right now we are in the era of precision medicine, so we need to kind of accurately diagnose it. Better understanding of the morphology as well as the emergence of ancillary studies that may be used to formulate a correct diagnosis, which is critical to the well-being of the patient and attention to the distinguishing key morphologic, I mean gross and microscopic features, how to plan out your immunostain. Do not pour all the immunostain in one go. You go in a panelized approach, having the question, what is the origin of the tumor? Proximal tubule, interconnected duct, or medulla. Then it will help you more to differentiate and know what tumor you are dealing with and allow for a more targeted therapy related approach and a better patient. Thank you very much for your time. This is like a flirtatious girl, which is eosinophilic. We do not know it is malignant or benign.
Thank you. Dr. Roy would like to comment. Sir, please.
Yeah.
Okay, there is a question here on the chat. Does any metastatic tumor come in the DD of these pink kidney tumors?
Yeah, any metastatic tumor does come under big tumor. I mean, usually when you see a tumor which is in the medulla, close to the renal pelvis, we think about a urothelial carcinoma. Any high-grade tumor. Problem is the high-grade tumors in the kidney de novo, the primary ones, they show eosinophilia. And any metastatic tumor with a lot of eosinophilic cytoplasm can come as a differential. You can basically virtually can have any tumor come to the kidney because kidney is highly vascular. So you can have another tumor getting into either the normal kidney or into the renal cell carcinoma, which is called tumor to tumor metastasis, is very common. I've seen germ cell tumor getting into with a lot of eosinophilic cytoplasm getting into a clear cell RCC giving like a. But fortunately, we have the history to do the SOL4 and OP3 staining to have the diagnosis. But tumor to tumor metastasis is very common to a renal cell carcinoma. Renal cell carcinoma is the nidus to get other tumors from the rest of the body.
Anybody would like to ask any question can unmute the mic and ask directly to Dr. Mohanty.
Yeah, thank you, Samit, for a very comprehensive Saturday evening revision. But I must admit, whenever we look at these unusual pink tumors, sometimes really you have to, get back to your books and tables to see whether with these days new classification coming up really becoming very complex. And but you simplified very this thing. I have one question regarding this low grade oncocytic tumor. So what I essentially understand is it is morphologic looking like oncocytoma, but immunoprofile is quite opposite.
Yes. I
So
mean,
so
not exactly like oncocytoma. In the
yeah.
sound beginning, the first paper which was published a couple of years ago.
Hmm.
So what he found like is mostly a compact nested pattern of growth.
Hmm.
And I mean, typically it. I mean, some of their cases they have this loose mesenchyme like oncocytoma
Hmm. Hmm.
and
Hmm. Hmm.
unencapsulated. And those
Right.
tumors
Right.
have 117 meter thickness. So recently, when I was in the US, we reviewed a few
Okay.
cases. So
Hmm.
when
Hmm.
you reviewed a few cases about cases which are termed as oncocyte, because normally what happens whenever we have oncocytoma, we do not do immunostain. We just
Right.
stop there.
Right.
We say
Yes.
oncocytoma,
Yes.
why to waste money on oncocytoma? Also,
Exactly.
we think they are going to be CD117 positive.
Hmm.
Okay, so what we had about 119 or so cases, and in those cases we started putting immunostain. They
Hmm.
some tumors they look like classical oncocytoma, and some have a little hybrid morphology, but not exactly like a chromophobe. A little bit of wrinkling, but not much. You just have to
Hmm.
like imagine a lot to call it wrinkling. So what
Right.
happened? In 13 cases, are dead negative for CD117 and the diffuse
Okay.
CD7 positive. So we changed
Oh.
after those cases how different they are genotypically. And out
Right.
of those, around 6 cases they have mTOR amplification. One has FGFR3, two or three are no mutation. So this thing, I mean, a lot of things. Maybe I mean we cannot really advocate on so many little cases, but maybe it is the good idea to throw a CD117 in
Hmm.
oncocytoma cases, or at
Right.
least oncocytoma with atypical features like
Yes, the
NFP
ones which,
mutation. And
yes, the
sometimes
ones which are,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Sorry, so
yeah, yeah,
those are
carry
the
on.
cases. Yeah. So maybe we can think about collaborating and doing a study. This guy will also kind of give his
Sure,
opinion.
sure, because we
Yeah.
get lots of them here at Ames and
And
really,
we don't do anything. We don't do anything.
yes,
We
yes,
just
yes, with the,
oncocytoma will stop it. Maybe just throw a 117 and see like whether they're 117 because 117 is the diagnostic signature of onco and chromo. If they are
right.
negative, then probably we are dealing with something else.
Fine, fine. And what about the outcome of these cases? Did you follow up and how is it different
We have
from?
follow up in these cases. They did well. They are stage one tumor,
Okay,
and PDL1 is high in a couple of them, but not very
okay,
high, 10%, 12% type.
right,
But
right,
the
right.
follow up duration is again very less, and the number of cases worldwide is very very less. So nobody
Yes,
really
that I
knows how
saw. That I saw.
to.
There were a couple papers there right now this time also at USCAP.
Yeah.
So yeah, so but very interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Maybe it's good to throw CD117 and look at these aspect of
Uh, because
eosinophilic
India is the
tumors.
gold. I mean, we have the maximum number of cases across the country. So we
Right,
can have
right.
a massive series if you can at least do those cases. And this renal, because once we say it is oncocytoma, the patient is not going to come to the urologist again. It is benign.
Right, right, right,
But if you
right,
say it
right.
is a low-grade oncocytic tumor, so it doesn't unset histogenesis, or you do not know what is happening. Because in this genotype, we saw a lot of mTOR amplified. So why they are mTOR amplified?
Yes,
Normally,
yes.
mTOR is not amplified in onco or chromo. So
Oncocytoma.
probably or chromo. So probably there is a different pathway altogether, and maybe we can target this patient with therapy.
Yes, mTOR therapy. Yeah, mTOR inhibitors. Very interesting, very interesting. Thank you very much. Wonderful listening to you.
Thank you. You know.
As we see with new immunohistochemistry coming in and new molecular markers coming in, the spectrum of eosinophilic tumors is increasing day by day. I think we are
Right.
splitting them into much more, minor entities, and each one of them have a different prognosis and a different outcome.
Right.
That's very interesting. I mean,
I
it's
used to be
really,
a lumper. I used to be a lumper. I don't like. I was not a splitter until like 2012 or so. But later on, I thought like if you do not a splitter, you'll end up in trouble because if you say it is oncocytoma and all, it's nice. Go home, lump it up. But we all have to like specifically for the youngsters, we have to like split it up because everything has a different prognostic or therapeutic signature or a therapeutic implication.
it
It's making
also
our
it
life
also
difficult.
yeah, it also puts up the mind that everything what is appearing on light microscopy
Hmm.
might look all similar, but once you go further deep down, it's quite different.
Yeah, but Dr. Nadeem, I always respect my grossing and my microscopy because after doing the stain, if someone is very careful looking at the H&E stain, you do see subtle changes. I mean, once we said it's like oncocytoma, I mean, we all are from the same place. This, with due regards to our no matter like morphologies, I still feel gross morphology because these LOTs they quite do not look like oncocytoma. They have some hemorrhage and they have a little bit of variegation. I mean, they do have subtle gross and microscopic changes happening. May not be that florid like a genotypic change. So, and that is basically going to give us in US and all, they pour a lot of stain. They have a lot of money, but here everything comes in the patient's pocket. So we have to kind of think judiciously before we kind of start immunostain. I still
Yeah,
believe like pathology.
one more thing which I want to make a small comment here is that many a times when you see it on light microscopy and you go back and see the gross
Hmm.
again, and you
Yes.
realize that it's really not fitting into a typical oncocytoma,
Right,
that's
right,
where
right.
you start thinking. And I was very happy that you paid a lot of stress on the gross, trying to show us how different tumors have different gross presentation. That is very important.
Yeah, because
That
going
was
back and
wonderful.
forth to the grossing and looking at because we want to give them the best diagnosis with little money, with limited resources.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
true.
think that is the beauty. And if the urologist is not going to do anything with the diagnosis, there's no point wasting money.
Right,
Because if
yeah,
the simple follow-up is there, then going, I mean, maybe in the next decade or so or later on, all these drugs will evolve. But I think onco versus non-onco is something we need to know. Whether it's a perfectly benign, where the patient may not need to come for a follow-up, or it is some sort of a malignancy. Because once it is malignancy, the urologist is going to follow it up. And if it is high grade, so basically I kind of divide my cases into onco, chromo, or high grade tumor with eosinophilic features. Then the treatment can be designed that way. And urologists across the country probably they want that because most of the drugs are not FDA approved.
right. Anybody else has any question? Any last minute comment by anybody? Dr. Sudipta Roy, would you like to make a comment? Dr. Seema, if you would like to make a comment?
No, just thank you. It was a nice this thing, and the new entities which we've been picking up now are SCRCC and thyroid like RCC and even ALK-RCCs, and they're all coming up into this eosinophilic differentials, adding up to the headache. And I'm sure next year with the
Yeah,
new classification.
I did not put ALK, deliberately that this lab
Yes.
because you get so much. I get so confused when I look at those entities. The more and more I read, I get into like real
Yes,
problems.
yes. So if you come from our MBBS time, there were only two types, and now they're already close to
Yeah.
20, 20. So I don't know where are we heading now. I don't know.
They are good for publication, but when in real life, they create a lot
Yes,
of noise.
lots of noise. Exactly. Right.
So
Right. Great.
thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice catching up with
thank
you all.
you
Bye.
very much, Dr. Mahanti. Thank you, Dr. Seema. Thank you, everybody. Dr. Nadanita, and I can see Dr. Manoj, Dr. Mitra, and so many of them, Dr. Nizar. Thank you so much for joining. And so, just before we go away, I mean, Dr. Mahanti, what is your next topic? We can't leave you.
What is Dada is going to say? Whatever my boss will say, I'll do that. Sudip Dada is quiet today. I'm upset because Dada is not talking.
No, actually,
Because without his blessing, my talk cannot go. I need his blessing.
actually, he's not very, I think, not very savvy with his Google Meets
I think there is some
methodology.
problem with the phone
Yeah,
actually. So I can
yeah.
take anything. I mean, I can check like anything. Maybe Seema and I can do half and half. Any of the lecture, Seema, you suggest? Seema is a brilliant Europathologist of the country, and
Thank
so
you.
we
Thank you.
so we can do something together.
Yes, we can do. You have to give me some time
Yeah.
for this thing. We can plan, and I think bladder already staging and all. Dr. Verma is taking, and prostate we've
On Monday.
covered Monday.
Yeah.
No? So, how about something on penile pathology?
Yes. We
Right?
can talk about a penile thing, right, Seema?
Yes, 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 yes. So we
Maybe
can
you
plan
and I
a
will do that.
yes. So that can be done. We can figure it out in some time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
we need
Dr.
at least
Nadeem is okay with yeah.
we need some time, and before that, I can take a case-based discussion. I have some cool cases,
Oh, that's
so I can
wonderful.
take
That will be
some
perfect.
case-based thing I can do. And for penile, probably Seema, we need a month, right?
Yes, yes, of course.
Yes.
Quite
Uh,
more than that,
more than
maybe.
We
that.
can put it
So
up. We can put up the penile tumors in December.
December, yeah,
Yes, yes, that will be good. Yeah.
that would be
That
good.
would be
And before
good,
that, we can do
because
some cases.
Yes,
right now,
yes,
and in between, if both of you can come up with some, interesting case series, then that would be
Yeah.
nice for the students and the PGTs and the other
Right,
yes,
guys.
right.
yes.
Yeah,
Sure, sure,
that we
sure,
can
sure.
do. One by Seema and one by me, we can do.
We can
Okay.
do. Yes.
मैं बिना पूछे हाँ बोल दिया
No, this the last 3 months are academically very heavy, so
Yeah,
to
yeah.
figure out
So,
and space out the things. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, everybody needs time to, settle
Right,
down.
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yeah.
December, mid-December, late December, we can think of something.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect
Right.
for me. Perfect
And
for me.
before that, we can do like the case discussion. Case
Sure,
Yes,
sure,
discussion.
sure,
that would
sure,
be wonderful. Yeah.
sure,
Thank
sure,
you
sure.
so much. It was wonderful. The presentation, the interaction, Saturday evening was wonderful for all of us. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye. Have
See
a
all
nice
of you
weekend,
again.
everyone. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take
Thanks,
care.
man.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Mahanti. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.